Good evening. This is Dr. Frank McMillan Jr. This is the May 28th meeting of the North Andover Board of Health. I will now call the meeting to order. That was a very small gavel. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of the people who may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Board of Health will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For the meeting, the members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 6 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, a transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as is possible after the meeting. Okay, we will move to approval of the minutes. I believe that the minutes have been distributed for, let me see here, Board of Health meeting minutes on 5/7/2020. Did we have any others that were pending, Mr. McCarthy?
To the best of my knowledge, just the minutes of the meeting on April 23rd and May the 7th, both of which have been critiqued, and make a motion that they are approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to both take attendance and find out what the vote is by just taking a roll call. Patrick Scanlon, your vote?
Aye.
All right, Michelle Davis?
Aye.
Joseph McCarthy?
Aye.
Daphne LaFleur-Alva?
Aye.
And Frank McMillan? Aye. So it's a unanimous vote. The meetings are accepted, and we also have a quorum. All right, so next agenda item. Why don't we move to communications, announcements, and discussion. We have the tech environmental contract.
Yes, we do. I sent this out to you guys this week. This is just the second extension of a one-year contract, making it the third year in our third-party environmental monitoring of Wheelabrator contract. Standard practice. We've done this a few times. I just wanted to put it up to a quick vote, see if you guys had any questions. I believe TEC may be listening to this call. I don't know if they're on it right now or not. And nope, they're not. But this is standard practice. We've done this several times, and just wanted to bring this before you guys.
I was the superintendent of this waste energy facility over 30 years ago, and I'm familiar with the environmental monitoring. I do take a look at all the reports. Tech Environmental does a good job, and I just don't see there being a problem.
I agree. They've been fantastic to work with and very responsive to any questions, anything that comes up. They are right there on top of it, which is awesome.
And of course, correct me if I'm mistaken, Brian, but it's $17,900 a year, and our town is well, this is paid for by Wheelabrator, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yeah, they give us money every year for third-party monitoring. So the town technically doesn't pay anything, but we get money from Wheelabrator, goes into a revolving account, and we use this to pay any consultants we need, specifically this particular third party for stack testing and monitoring.
And so, Brian, this is kind of a pro forma renewal right now. When does this contract go out to bid again?
Next year. So this would be
All
good
right.
from June 1st through May 31st. And then next year, we'll go back out to bid again for another 1-year contract with 2 1-year extensions.
And Brian, just to remind me, when was the last time we had tech come to the meeting? We had some purpose for them being at one of our meetings within the last couple of years, and I can't recall the circumstances, but my recollection of them was very professional and didn't have any issues. But can you do you recall what the purpose we had them in for?
Yeah, just to come and talk to the board about what they do, their company, how they operate, and just give a presentation on basically their environmental monitoring of Wheelabrator. And Wheelabrator was there as well, talking about their operations, just to educate the board and the residents of North Andover about what's going on. And instead of rumors, hearing the fact versus fiction, straight from Wheelabrator and our environmental monitor.
Thank you. Any other members have questions for Brian?
No.
Okay, hearing no questions, would somebody like to make a vote to extend the contract?
I make a motion to extend the contract.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to extend the contract. Brian, what's the date of the extension?
Through May 31st, 2021.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to extend the contract. Brian provided a clarification through May 31st, 2021. Is there any further discussion? Not hearing any further discussion. We'll move to a vote. We'll take a voice vote unless it's not unanimous. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed, no. It's unanimous. The ayes have it. The contract is approved through May 31st, 2021. Why don't we move on to our next agenda item, which is the COVID-19 update. Brian?
All right, so it's been a couple weeks since we met. This is actually our regularly scheduled meeting, not a in-between meeting. So let's see. So right now, Massachusetts has just under 95,000 cases. So they're approaching the 100,000 mark. We'll probably be reaching that this weekend. Today, there were 675 new cases, which is actually pretty good. 1 month ago, we were averaging over 2,000 a day. A month and a half ago, we were at like 2,500 a day. So we've come way down where it's basically between 500, it's around 500 a day at this point. They reported from 7,000 tests. And Mass has really done a really good job testing, believe it or not. In total, the state has done 562,000 tests to date, which is top 5 in the country per capita. So they've really stepped that up. And they're currently working on ramping up testing capabilities to be up to 30,000 per day. And up to 45,000 by July. And then up to 75,000 by December. So right now we're at a 8% positive testing percentage, which is a really good average. There are currently 2,100 hospitalizations in Mass. And if you think about it, 1 month ago, they were up around 3,800. So capacity has gone, capacity was really high before. The numbers are really low. We have space. Everything is looking pretty good and trending in the right direction. But we just entered phase 1. Phase 1 has been on the books for like 10 days. We know that the incubation period of COVID is between like 2 and 14 days. So they're going to really monitor phase 1 activity and see what's going on, analyzing all the info as well as information from other states and looking at their reopening data as well. So they're looking at places that reopen restaurants for outdoor seating and watching those trends to see how it's going to translate to Massachusetts. Also exploring opening up hospitals to visitation and allowing long-term care to have outdoor visitors. There's no set date on that yet, but they were talking about it. It has been put out there. I'm hoping that it does get to that point. Right now, obviously, we're working on reopening businesses and supporting phase 1 questions. Overall guidance and checklists and signage and self-certifications of businesses opening up. At this point, there's obviously a lot of gray areas in all the businesses that aren't in some of the specific classifications that have been entered into phase 1. So it's kind of figuring out where all of these businesses lie, which phase they're going to be in, and then helping them figure out what they need to do the self-certifications and things like that. So we're getting a lot of questions on that stuff, getting a lot of mask complaints as well. I think one thing we want to try to explain and maybe get out there in more detail is the wearing of masks in the order itself. It's pretty general, but obviously masks are required in public buildings and whenever you go into public places and stores, things like that. It's places where you can't guarantee 6 foot of social distancing while you're there. If you are going into a grocery store, you know there's no way you can guarantee you're not going to walk by somebody or be within close contact of somebody not wearing a mask. So that's when you need to have a mask on. That's what the order is for. It's when you are out hiking in the woods, you can have a mask with you. You don't need to wear your entire hike, but if you see somebody coming and you're going to pass somebody in the trail, you put your mask on. If you're walking around the common on the sidewalk, you should definitely have your mask on because there's a lot of people walking as well, or have it with you if there's not a lot of people there, so you can put it on when you're approaching somebody or somebody is basically sitting on one of the park benches, something like that. It's when you're sitting in the middle of the common with your 4-year-old son rolling a ball around and there's nobody around you, you don't need to wear a mask. You should have it with you going to and from places that are going to have more people, but you don't need to wear it while you're sitting in the grass in the middle of the town common playing with a ball with your 4-year-old son. So just trying to clarify that's with the general population because we're getting a lot of complaints about people that aren't wearing masks doing certain activities where they may not need them. We have been evaluating the beach and the summer fun program with the youth center. We're trying to get an idea as to what's going to be allowed when the guidance comes out for camps. Beaches are allowed to open, and I'm working with the beach director on getting that taken care of. Obviously, there's going to be new rules and social distancing policies in place and things like that we're working on now. So that's definitely something that's going to be good for people to get out, be able to go to the beach and go safely, and have the beach open for just general recreation.
Hey, Brian, what about playgrounds?
Playgrounds are not open yet, but they are scheduled to be open in phase 2. So obviously there'll be some guidelines that come along with that as well. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but it may be along the same lines of social distancing while at the playground. I know it's going to be difficult for kids to do that, so that's probably where where the holdup is right now. I think overcrowding the playgrounds with adults and kids is probably what they're trying to figure out on specific guidance before they actually open them up. Let's see. So just a quick for your information, governor's press conference the other day, they did announce, and I talked about this with the staff meeting earlier, they did announce a $36 million food securities grant for food producers, retailers, and distributors. They're trying to encourage farmers markets and nutritious foods and utilizing the producers we have here in the state to get this food out to the general public and get more of the nutritious food actually out there. I think the total grant that they are awarding is up to, well, it's $50 million, $52 million in grants, with that second chunk going towards the food distribution infrastructure. So cold holding, transportation, and things of that nature to get the food distribution facilities set up for the additional farmers markets and produce and things like that. So that's all that I have for my update. Caroline is here as well to talk about our local numbers and what she has going on. And Stephen is also here for an update as well.
Hi, this is Caroline. As far as numbers today, we have 313 confirmed cases from the beginning. 157 of those have recovered. and we have had 31 deaths to date. We have also, since the beginning in North Andover, have tested about 2,500 people. I'm still working with a few of the school nurses. They only have a couple weeks left before they are off for the summer, so they've have been helping me out with a little bit of the caseload. We have an increase in the antibody testing, and if they have not had a PCR swab done, we have to follow up with them to make sure that they do have that done, or they have to stay in isolation. The reason for that is because we want to make sure they're not actively infectious. We're following up with positive cases still and just making sure that they're isolating as they should be and that their contacts are quarantining, their contacts are getting tested, and if they develop symptoms, getting retested. Still working with long-term care facilities. Some of those have been in the process of retesting their positives. So if a lot of the long-term care are using the retest strategy, so 2 negative swabs, and they can come off of isolation. So a couple places have had a handful of their positive residents coming off of isolation, which is good. And I think that's pretty much it, just staying up to date on everything that's kind of changing and working with, local organizations as they start to open up and see if they need stuff. And as long-term care facilities open up, visiting what that means. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Caroline. And Steve?
Mhm.
Yeah, so Brian kind of covered this part already, but I've been basically responding to a lot of complaints and questions, and like you said, there's been a lot of mass complaints, especially with some food establishments. So in part, it's just been going out to them, talking to them, basically trying to do it from an educational perspective of explaining why they need to be wearing them. And then I've been starting to do a little bit more regular stuff as far as my job goes, as far as some inspections go outside of the office, conducting plan reviews and some permitting. And then we've been trying to gather, once the reopening information came out for businesses, all that information and put it into one area where people can find it, and then just creating a little PSA just to put out on social media in regards to just directing people towards that information so they can complete it and self-certify as needed. We sent out a PSA to food establishments on this stuff as well, just because they were just a large group we could get the information out to for self-certifying right away. And then we also gave them in an email signage for face coverings while people are inside their establishment. That was geared more toward customers, just something they can post on their door, just saying you need one of these face coverings just to come into the establishment. I've been trying to keep in touch with pool operators throughout town. We keep getting questions on those. And then also speaking with just businesses who have questions on reopening, and doing some walkthroughs with some staff from Town Hall like Steve Foster and others, just in regards to trying to get back in gear to hopefully eventually reopen Town Hall safely. And then we did create just a brief PSA on telehealth. I know we talked about that last meeting that we put out to the public, just encouraging people basically to reach out to their doctors and not put off any checkups or anything like that any further, and to at least try and do a over the phone or video chat meeting with their doctor, and then also talk about when they can actually start coming back in and stuff like that.
Nice. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so as you guys can see that general operations are still required. We still have permitting. We still have septic systems being installed. The pool operators are calling up, wondering when they can get their pools open. So things are definitely moving along. It's obviously a lot to handle with everything else going on, but things are still required, and we're still getting the building permits reviewed and things like that. So staff is doing a great job, and we're keeping our head above water.
Brian, this is Frank. I got a question for you.
Sure.
You had talked about the 8% positivity rate in the testing, and it's my understanding that you want to see that below 10%. You said that was good, but can you go into a little detail about why that's good, just for people who are listening? Because it does really kind of bring some hope to the forefront.
I think when you have such a low percentage of your testing, you're getting the testing done. You're getting the people tested. You're getting the close context of a positive patient tested. And it gives you a good broad surveillance of the general population and the spread. So before last month, we were having a 30% positive rate. So you know that there was a lot of spread, a lot of transmission, and it was running through the community. So below 10% is a really good number. We've been shooting for this for a while now, and we finally have achieved it. But it's the testing capabilities and the transmission basically correlate to if when you have a low number, you're doing a really good job.
Thank you for that excellent summary. I wanted to ask you, you brought up also something about the farmers market and healthy lifestyles and things like that. We have a very successful farmers market in North Andover, which I think is not only financially successful, but it's socially successful. I'm sure lots of people are asking the question, what's the plan with that?
I've spoken to the farmers market. We had a Zoom call a couple of weeks ago. They emailed me a draft layout of their overall design. And obviously last year and in the previous years, there's been great success there with a lot of vendors and a lot of excitement and a lot of people. So what they've had to do this year is basically a lot of vendors dropped out just because of the situation that they're in, and they're going to have to space things out a little bit. So their design is based upon social distancing, one-way traffic. They're going to do curbside pickup. So they've really pared things down to just food vendors versus any of the other vendors that may have been there that had other things besides food, or some of the herbs and things like that aren't coming back this year. But they have the tent staggered. They're going to have an entrance from one side. I believe it's by the CVS entrance on First Street. And then it's going to one-way traffic to the tent staggered from each side of the street. So one on one side, then one on the other side, then one back on this side. And there's going to be one-way traffic. And then obviously curbside pickup. There's going to be a lot of prepayment, pre-orders. There's going to be, you won't be able to actually pick out the produce yourself. You're going to have to point to it. The workers are going to have masks, gloves, sanitizer. You're going to be 6 feet from any payment options, things like that. So they're really working hard on getting it done safely and still viably with getting these farmers markets, these products out to the population.
And are the patrons going to be asked to wear masks?
It will be required because they will be in public and they will not be able to guarantee a 6-foot separation the entire time they're there. So yes.
Brian, I don't know if this is a good time to talk about this, but we have a town election and a town meeting coming up.
Yes. So that's part of my discussion. It's also on the agenda as elections. Figure one is the board election and one is the town election. If you guys want to go into that, we can do that. We can get town meeting discussion as well.
Before we go on to that, why don't I just open it up to the membership if they have any questions on anything we've discussed so far?
Yeah, I'd like to start, and this is to Brian, and I don't mean to put you in a corner because you don't make state law or laws concerning the coronavirus, but perhaps you can explain the genesis of some of these laws. For example, Governor Baker says that the actions taken to address the COVID-19 is based upon scientific data. And as an engineer, I say, well, how do we access this data? For example, he's saying if you're at the beach, you have to have social distancing of 12 feet, 40% capacity of churches, 20% capacity of zoos, like the Franklin Park Zoo and the Stoneham Zoo. So what is the scientific data on such numbers? And again, I don't mean, you don't make it. I know you don't make it. It's by the state bureaucrats. But can you, I'm just perplexed by this. Can you help, Ryan?
I wish I could. I can tell you that if I could predict what the state was thinking, I'd make a lot more money. But
Well, I'll say my take on this. My take is that there is no such scientific data, that the regulations are arbitrary and at times perhaps capricious, and they're probably written by unelected bureaucrats who have no skin in the game. That is, they don't suffer economically because they work for the state. If you take a look at these regulations throughout the nation, they're all over the place. Many of them just don't make any sense. And I see that in Massachusetts to an extent. I feel that what the governor has done so far has been pretty good. But going forward, I'm just not sure when I look at regulations as such. And two other quick questions for you, Brian. I know that the enforcement of the state's COVID-19 mandate is left to local health officials. How convenient that is for the state, including fines. And I'm not comfortable with fines. I think it's really important that we go light on fines unless someone is really obstinate and obnoxious. Because some people have very strong feelings that what we're doing is really not right, particularly young people. And finally, on contact tracing, what if, for example, if you get a haircut, what if one refuses to pass personal information along, such as their name, phone number, and address? Do they have that? To me, it's. I don't see anything in the Constitution, and I know a lot about the Constitution, U.S. Constitution. I don't see this there at all. So what if someone refuses to participate? Are we going to fine that person? Or what are we going to do?
No, we just,
No. Go ahead,
I can
Caroline.
tell you, Joe, from what I do, not everyone wants to share who they've been in contact with, especially if they're in isolation or quarantine and they know they're supposed to stay home and then they go and travel and visit people. They don't want to give us names of people. So a lot of, not just myself, but a lot of other health departments are struggling sometimes to do that effective contact tracing. So I just communicate with them. I say, I understand that you don't want to give me that information. If you could just follow up with them, tell them that they've been exposed so they can, do the right thing moving forward. If you need me to forward on information to them, but we don't force it. I mean, it's up to them if they want to give us that information or not.
Good, because when I hear whoa, they're enforcing this $300 per fine in Lawrence, in Somerville, and some other cities and towns and communities in Massachusetts, I'm saying to myself, I don't think this is the direction to go at all. And so I'm delighted to hear what you saying what you did, Calvin.
Yep. And I think Steve already touched upon this, where we're doing a more proactive educational approach. Whenever you have an order or some sort of regulation, it needs to have some teeth somewhere, just in case. And I think for us, it's more of a, let's go talk to the person or the business and find out what the situation is, and then kind of educate them as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yes, we have the ability to issue a fine. That's not our intent, and we don't plan to do that unless we're pushed to do that. We've always been let's talk and educate first, and then see how that goes. The barbershop thing that you were talking about, I think for the customer to come in, they have to make an appointment ahead of time. They have to give their phone number so they can wait in their car until their appointment is ready. Then they get called in to the salon or barbershop to come get their haircut. So they already have their contact information at that point. They're going to be required to wear a mask. The business has the right, and we let them know this, that they can refuse service if somebody doesn't wear a mask because they're not following the government's order, and they can be subject to a fine, either the business or the person not adhering to the orders. So obviously we don't want to do that, but the business can say, hey, look, you can't come in here without a mask on. It's the governor's order. It's the whole no shirt, no shoes, no service. Now we just add a mask into that too.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Joe, it's Frank here. I'd just like to comment that I think that this board has taken a very light touch, as Brian had just said, more education. What we don't want to do is create a situation where the order is so onerous that people will just disobey it because it's unreasonable. With regard to the scientific basis of these regulations, I think I'm going to agree with you and also disagree at the same time. I think that they are scientific, but they're borrowed. They're not specifically scientific to the coronavirus. They're borrowed from our experience with other types of transmissible viruses, mostly influenza, and they may not actually be valid. So I don't know that they're capricious, but they may be incorrect. And as we learn more, I think that these orders will become less blunt and more targeted. But for right now, I think as long as we keep things reasonable, that we don't threaten people with fines for doing things that, are just downright silly, that we understand that, that there is a public health emergency. People are dying of this, not all, but many, that we do have a responsibility to put forward the best knowledge that we have, but we should also be very honest that this is adapted from our experience with flu, and it may not apply to coronavirus, but absent anything better, this is what we think might help keep you safe. If you put it that way, people will say, yeah, I guess so, because you can't tell me exactly what the answer is. I'll accept this to a degree and follow it to help reduce the spread of the virus. So
And
I think I would
agree
think
with
of it that
Frank.
way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Frank. They're obviously learning a lot more about the transmission of the virus and the specifics of the corona versus influenza. I think a lot of it is based on science. Some of it is borrowed, like you said. I think obviously even in the governor's position, there is political push for certain things, like the golf courses open up a week before anything else because of the lobby, and knowing some of the science to say, look, you're outside, it's on a huge golf course. We know that the transmission of the virus outside is much less than inside, like markedly less than inside. So I think there's politics that definitely come into play, but there's also a science basis for that too.
Right. Bill Burt had a great article in the Eagle Tribune about some of the unreasonableness about some of the restrictions on golf having to do with privilege and things of that nature. It was a really nice discussion. He actually made Tucker Carlson. So
Nice.
But it's like 19 regulations to golf, and I'm saying to myself, whoa, gee, that's a lot.
Yes.
And that's
Right.
only one sport. That's only one endeavor.
Joe, it's a great point, and I think we have to be careful if we overstep and over-regulate. And I don't think that we have in North Andover, but I think that some communities have. And you have to be careful. If you start getting too harsh, you kind of lose people. I don't want to lose anybody, and I think that I think we've taken a reasonable approach, and I think when this thing is all over, you're going to be proud of what we did. So
Yeah, unfortunately, we all are coming from the same place, but nevertheless, I did want to bring it up and perhaps allay some fears, concerns that people that are listening may have. I'm impressed with what we've done, certainly more impressed with what we've done in the town than what we've done in the state. But be that as it is, the future looks rosy.
Thanks, Joe. All right,
So,
Frank.
Brian, did you want to? I didn't see it on the agenda, but I know that we had an emergency order on masks that did not have an expiration date. Did you want to take that up now, or did you have someplace else you wanted to go?
No, I figured we might finish the discussions first with if you want to do town meeting, talk about town meeting, and then go on to the elections, and then finish up with anything like that, like the order.
All right. Why don't we go to town meeting then next?
Okay. So let's see. I'm just trying to get my notes here.
It's Tuesday, right?
Town meeting is going to be June 16th. And we've been working with the town meeting committee on trying to come up with the best out of the worst options. I had a conversation with Joe about this. I know he has some opinion. I've also talked to Irene about this as well, the director of the senior center. And there's definitely concerns with the senior population and the outdoor town meeting and access and ability to get there and voice their and have their votes. So I'm going to turn this over to Joe. I know he wanted to talk about this, and let's kind of go from there.
Well, I wasn't really planning to talk about it in any depth, but let me point out some specifics. It is, barring the unexpected, to be held at the outdoor stadium, the Joseph Walsh Stadium, the stadium adjacent to our high school. It's quite large, as a matter of fact. The high school, it's adjacent to the high school football field, and there's another field there. It looks like a soccer field that's just as large, if not even larger. And adjacent, immediately on the immediate sideline of the football field, there are aluminum seats. There are 10 rows, and you go back, from bottom to top, 12. So 10 times 12 is 120 sections altogether. Each section will sit maybe 10, 20 people. I don't know. At the very top, and again, these are aluminum benches, the bench at the top, because I walked around that area this past week, the bench at the top rows have a back on it, so you can rest your back against it. At the very top, they have a men's room and a woman's room. At the very top, there is a parking lot for, it can be only for seniors, certainly seniors that have handicap placards. So they don't have to walk that far. However, having said all of that, I'm really concerned that this will be a big turnoff for seniors. I know we're talking about spraying beforehand. We have no idea what the weather is going to be. So it could be delayed. There could be a thunderstorm during that time. It's at 5 o'clock, not 7 o'clock at night. 5 o'clock at night is a very, very inconvenient time, particularly for those people that are going back to work right now. And if you look at the warrant articles, and again, the purpose of the meeting is to vote on the warrant article. The warrant. That's my Bostonian accent, if you can't hear me that well or correctly. But warrant article number 12, that article is on acquiring some land adjacent to where the new senior center will be. And it's very important that seniors are there to vote on it because it concerns them directly. My feeling is that having it outdoors is going to, in the eyes of a lot of seniors, be inconvenient. They won't be as represented as they would be if it was inside. You can certainly maintain social distancing inside, but it is safer outside. I'll say that. So what as a board we're doing is not determining where it is. It seems to have already been set, but to talk about how safely we can keep it. And having said that, has there been a committee formed at all, Brian, to look at that? I mean, we really have some sharp people in our town that could add value to this that are very, very concerned. I know that it's a political issue right now. I don't want to go there. I'm only concerned from the health and safety perspective and accessibility for those that are most in need in our town, which is the 6,000 plus seniors. Good Lord, it's like 1 out of every 3 adults.
Mm-hmm. And I know that the committee that Mark DeSalvo asked to form really looked long and hard at all the different options.
I was not aware of that. Who was on that committee?
I can't recall off the top of my head, but there was a good number of people that were there to discuss. It was the town manager. It was myself. It was Mark DeSalvo. It was probably the police chief, fire chief. I think it was a good group of people that kind of went through and tried to figure out what to do, what the best way was. I think that in the situation with the restrictions that we have, I think knowing some of the science behind the virus at this point, there are no good indoor options, which I think is obviously most comfortable and the most usual prior to this pandemic. I think looking at different ways to do it, this is one of the best out of the worst options, of course. So we are going to have tents. There is going to be parking for seniors. There is going to be level access, I believe. I don't know about the bathrooms. I know they were looking to get temporary bathrooms out onto the field for.
Oh, the men's and women's room in the upper deck, I believe. Lisa said like boy and girl or man and woman. I don't recall when I walked by there.
I don't recall. I know they were looking at the different setups that they had. I don't know if that's going to be those are going to be open for this. I think they may have a couple different options, and I'm not sure what the final decision is at this point. I think that looking at that, tents for the seniors, seats, not the stadium bleachers, as well as I did request mosquito control to come on the night before. They're going to do an adulticide around the school district property of the high school in the field. So mosquitoes won't be an issue. I know that's something that's starting to creep into everybody's mind at this point. Just in terms of West Nile, mosquitoes in general, and EEE later on this summer. So I have been working with them on, they've done their larviciding, they've started their programs, they're on board, and I have them scheduled for the day before town meeting.
Well, I'm delighted that Melissa Rodriguez, the town manager, was at that meeting, that committee. But there were a lot of senior advocates that perhaps were not there. Dee Casey, the assistant town manager, Rosemary Spadelli, she's a select woman and liaison with the senior center, Joe Sergi, chairman of the council on aging, Irene O'Brien, Deanne Lima, his community sport coordinator. These are the advocates to seniors. And these are the people that should have been in that meeting, or perhaps in future meetings.
Yeah, Joe, I don't remember the exact, there's like 15 people on the Zoom, so I don't remember exactly everybody who was there. I know it was a good representation.
Mm. Mm. Well, if there's more work to be done, if other members of Board of Health concur, I certainly would like to further discuss with you. Because again, boy, if seniors, my feeling is that very few seniors are going to go, and that's terrible. You know, and another thing we can do is perhaps we can change. I know there's been some thought on changing the numbers of the warrant articles again to acquire that parcel of land. That's warrant Article 12. Perhaps we can move it up. I've made most of these town meetings over the last 40 years or so. And sometimes people have a focus on one and only one warrant item, and then they leave immediately after it's voted upon. Here, our seniors, if they can vote on it early, if they leave, they may have to leave for health reasons. Not because they don't have any more interest, but they may not be able to stay around that long. So,
it's a parliamentary question, Joe, but, and I'd have to check the bylaws to be certain, but I think it is in order to take an item out. It's in order to consider an item out of the order. The moderator has some discretion on allowing it, but I think if you feel that you might want to just call the moderator yourself and ask him if he would give some consideration, and then check the bylaws and see what they say on the matter. But I don't think it's out of order for something to be taken early. The whole idea of a warrant is a warning to tell you what is coming up, but the order is determined by the moderator in consultation with the selectmen. But they could alter that, and that's another area for advocacy. But I don't know that we should get too bogged down on that because it's a political question, and we're really.
Yeah, I mentioned health and safety, and again, I'd like to further discuss, in particular with Brian and with the support of our board, and maybe some other people in our town that are truly advocates for the seniors, that have no political agenda other than being advocates for our seniors. That's all. Just are we doing everything that we can? Are we missing anything? What do we have to do to have the seniors properly represented at this meeting? This warrant Article 12 is going, I know about, it's going to be huge. And that may be, if the meeting's at 5 o'clock, we may not get it until later at night. And a lot of seniors will be gone at that time. Probably myself.
I don't think this meeting is going to go beyond 8 o'clock.
Don't know.
Once it gets dark, Joe, and this is like the longest week of the year, the longest days. Once it gets dark, it's going to be impossible to do business. So if it gets to the point where it gets too late, you're going to have to adjourn the meeting and reconvene it. And you're going to have to recess the meeting and do it on another night.
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't have a problem with Mark DeSalvo about this at all. As a matter of fact, I have reason to believe that changing the numbers around is an item of consideration in our town, primarily to help our seniors.
Well, I think you should do that. But you know, you did bring up a point about, you know, who's there advocating for the seniors. And I would just like to point out that, you know, Brian was a member of that. And, you know, Brian's job as health director is to advocate for the health of everybody. And we all know that the seniors are probably more impacted than others with the inconveniences of the site. But I think he put it correct. It's the best of a lot of terrible options. You know, meeting in a closed building for 2 to 3 hours is certainly not a healthy option for seniors.
No, that's the worst option for seniors, which is
I,
why
I
we
think
stayed away
I,
from that.
I think it could be done safely inside, but boy, if I'm mistaken, oh God, that'd be horrible, horrible. So but it doesn't matter. It's going to be outside right now, and let's make it as safe as possible for our seniors and have the greatest participation from them. That's what we have to do, and we have almost a month to work on that.
And
Well,
I think some of the science behind that, indoors is the highest rate of transmission. All of the outbreaks and clusters that they've seen are all from, the majority are from the home. And then the next is places of business and places of worship and things like restaurants. Interior, lack of airflow, being exposed to viral particles in the air over time. So exposure rate times time equals infection. So outside is the number one option. Social distancing is also required, which completely reduces the transmission rate by exponential factors. I think looking at all of the different options they talked about, going into even individual classrooms is not a good option. And the best thing to do is to do it something that they've come up with outside during the day, UV light, wind, and then getting it done quickly. Starting it earlier, ending it before dark, I think is the best option.
well, again, I like to further speak with you about this, Brian. I just want to have a fundamental understanding, because I'm also a member of the Council on Aging. I want to have a fundamental understanding of what we're going to do, accessibility and comfort for the seniors.
Yep.
You know, sitting on an aluminum bench.
Yeah, they're going to be chairs on
Allow
the field.
is not a thought of comfort as you get older. When you're young, nothing really matters, but when you get older, it's a different story. So if it's okay with you, Frank, and other members of the board, I'd like to further speak with Brian about this.
Joe, you're welcome to speak to Brian. You're welcome to advocate to Mark DeSalvo. You're welcome to talk to the selectmen and see if you can change the order of the warrant. It can be done as far as I understand.
Thank you.
It's a matter of, but I do think that when I listened in on the selectmen's meeting the other day, I think it is Mark's intention to have this thing wrap up before it gets really dark or buggy.
I think that's wise.
Okay, and I'm here for you, Joe. Whenever you want to meet, let me know. We can have a Zoom call. I'll teach you how to Zoom, and we'll go from there.
Well, we talked earlier today about a different way of meeting, so why don't we just leave it at that for now?
All right, sounds good, Joe. All right, Frank.
All right, so I think why don't we move since we just disposed of the discussion of the town meeting, why don't we talk about town elections?
Okay. Obviously, next on the agenda is town elections. The first thing we need to do for a local Board of Health election is replace you now that you're leaving us after our June 20-something meeting.
Right. So I'd like to have a new chairman elected this meeting because the next meeting, my ability to attend it might be limited due to things related to moving and lots of distractions. So I want to make sure that we have a new chairman in place before my appointment ends on June 30th. So my appointment goes to June 30th. This may be my last meeting. I might have one more in me. It kind of depends, but I think that you know that we're supposed to elect a new chairman in the spring, and it's kind of gotten deferred because of COVID. So I think we ought to just do it now.
All right.
So the floor is open for nominations.
Yes.
This is Michelle. I'd like to nominate Joe McCarthy.
For
Is that
chairman.
Michelle nominating Joe McCarthy?
Yep.
This is Daphne. I
Is there-
second that nomination.
And it's been seconded by Daphne. So it's been moved and seconded to nominate Joe McCarthy. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. This could be an election by acclamation. So we have one person who's been nominated and seconded. So we'll now move to a vote unless somebody wants to discuss Joe's fitness. I didn't really say that.
You're talking
All
about
right.
mental and physical.
All right. All in favor of Joe McCarthy being the next chairman of the North Andover Board of Health, which will begin at the conclusion of this meeting, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. Joe, it's unanimous. You're chairman, which means that we need a new clerk.
That's right. Do we have a nomination for clerk?
Joe, maybe you can educate, before we take nominations, maybe you tell them what the clerk does.
Sure. First of all, thanks for the unanimous confidence. As a chairman really is a facilitator on issues and concern regarding health and safety, control of disease, promotion of sanitary living conditions, protection of the environment, and so on and so forth. I am the first person in probably decades that doesn't have a medical background, but I am an engineer, a chemical engineer, and I consider myself to be an environmental engineer. And I have so many licenses and degrees and certificates in this field. But I said, I thank you very much for your confidence. I'm not going to be involved in the selection of I'd rather not be involved in the selection of the clerk, because we really have a good board. I mean, we have 3 people that are absolutely outstanding. But what the clerk does is the clerk is on top of paperwork of concern that eventually gets its way to the Board of Health. Paperwork such as the minutes, to critique the minutes, and he or she is the first to look at and provide such a critique. Paperwork such as review of the agenda. Again, paperwork, a clerk, and typically that person, and I've been the clerk for probably 12 years or so, if not even longer. And that can be, although it's not necessarily a stepping stone to being the chairman of the board. It can be as much work as you want it to be, or as little work as you want it to be. But nevertheless, it has a measure of importance to our town. I know that sometimes, certainly not right now with the way that the department is, and it's a fine department, the way that Brian has structured the department, but in the past, critiquing the paperwork has been a daunting undertaking. With Tony and Brian and other people in the department, that's no longer the case. But it's an important job, and it can also be an interesting job too. If nothing else, it's a way of keeping appraised of what's happening, because you're responsible for the paperwork. So that's my take on it.
And Joe, that's an excellent synopsis. And the other thing I would mention is that the clerk, being the second officer on the board, typically will assume the duties of the chair when the chair is not present.
Yes, and I've done that a number of times over the years.
Exactly. So the position of the clerk is open for nominations, and if anybody wants to put their name forward, or they want to nominate one of their friends, that either one would be appropriate. And if I don't hear anybody, then it's going to be F Troop. I'm going to nominate you.
Yeah, as I said, I want to stay out of the nomination right now.
Joe, you're probably in the best position to nominate somebody since you were the clerk and you know what it entails.
But you can all do the job that has to be done. And the three of you are very good, and I'm not being facetious about that. So I may I'm going to refrain and pass the buck to Frank if necessary. Frank has duty.
I'm happy to put myself up for clerk.
There you
Well,
go.
I would second that. You saved me the trouble. You know, I'm going to channel my good friend Andrew Mailer, and I will say that one of the things that Andrew Mailer said to me a number of years ago is I don't want anybody on my board who's not willing to assume being an officer, a clerk, or a chairman. Everybody on that board should be capable of taking that position. So I do believe that anybody on this board could be chair or could be clerk, and so I can tell you that it's. I think it's a good thing that that we have somebody who nominated herself, and it also creates a nice balance. I think that it's wonderful. So I will second the nomination of Michelle Davis. Hearing no other nominations, are we ready to move to a vote?
Yep.
Hearing no further discussion, we will now move to a vote. All in Michelle Davis as clerk of the Hanover Health, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. It is unanimous. Michelle Davis is now clerk of the Board of Health as of the end of this meeting. Congratulations to Michelle, and thank you all to the members for many years of support.
Congrats, Joe and Michelle. Nice.
And
All right,
also too,
to make a clapping noise.
also too, well,
Nice.
also too, congratulations to you, Frank. I mean, yeah, you've been terrific. You've been my mentor in so many ways, even though you're younger than me. Of course, most everyone in the world is younger than me, and and you've done a really good job. You're cool, calm, level-headed, and smart. Some of those things, but not all of them, I am. So I have to learn further and mimic you because you've done a good job. So kudos to you and applause to you, Frank.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe, and I'm sure you're gonna do fantastic in the job. So I wish you the best. I think that's a good job, and you have 100% of my confidence. And
Thank you.
I think a lot of people don't know. Joe is actually a big deal in a lot of different places. Joe's like run some big, serious, multi-million-dollar businesses. Joe's been a national examiner in the world of safety. He's been a leader in the waste to energy industry, and Joe's got a lot of experience. He's run some multi-million-dollar organizations, and so I think Joe can handle this responsibility, and I told him so. So there you go.
And if I didn't feel that I had your confidence, Frank, and the confidence of the other members of the Board of Health, I wouldn't have accepted the job. I mean it. There has to be that support and understanding and confidence. Look, we're not a political party. We're not like the Republicans and Democrats. All they do is talk bad about each other. You know, we work together, and we have to do that going forward. And because I have by far and away the most experience on the board, then I'm going to be working very close with other board members, and I'm going to have to count on them big time, because your loss is a huge void for us. It's a huge void. I can't understate that. And we're all going to have to pick up the pace, the four of us.
Well, Joe, I think you've got Brian, Caroline, Stephen, and you've got a great professional staff that basically makes our job easy. And I can't say enough. This is a fantastic professional staff that we have. We're very lucky to have them, and the relationships have been nothing but collegial and been really wonderful. And I really value everybody's role in this health department. The appointees like ourselves, but also the professional staff. I think it's been a great run.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that.
So
So
now that we've got that done, I'm happy that that item of business is now behind us. We can focus on some actual real Board of Health business. I think we got a septic issue, right, Brian?
prior to that, we're going to talk about the town election. I want to get your input on this. I've been working with some town officials on the upcoming election. And obviously, one of the things that we're concerned about is occupancy, getting the election done, having it be valid. And one of the things we're talking about is the flow through the field house, and then the number of people that's going to be working, as well as the setup and the flow of people voting and how to do that. And we've been tossing around different numbers. I just want to run some stuff by you. The field house is huge. Prior to any of this going on, the typical occupancy of the field house is 2,229 people. And that's for a sporting event. That's with the bleachers out, the place completely full and packed with people. No social distancing at all. 40% of that, which is what the churches are going by at this point, the number would be 892 people. Office staff and offices going to the 25% is, I cut it down to 20 just to cut the 40 in half. You're talking 446 people. Even this number in my head is still way too many people to be in the field house for voting at any one time. You're talking about 35 staff members working the polls, the registration, the witnessing, the polling, the checkout, all that stuff. So even cutting the 20% in half down to 223 is still a lot in my book. Cutting that in half down to 110, I think, is more appropriate, but this is gonna be a tricky thing, and I wanted to get your input on what you guys think for a number would be appropriate to discuss with Trudy, the town clerk, on having a recommendation for a number of people allowed in the field house at one time during the polling. So you're gonna come in one door, go through the flow, registration, then vote your precinct booth, and then check out, and then walk out a separate exit to get back to the parking lot. So it's going to be a loop, one-way traffic. And I just want to kind of toss it out there and see what you guys think.
Frank, this is Joe. With the new positions that I now have, I certainly would like to be involved in that decision. I don't have a feeling right now because I don't know enough about it. So I'd like to get together with you to discuss a number of things real soon, if not tomorrow, then sometime early next week. I can't even comment on numbers. I just have to think about it.
If you want to, I might be going over to the field house on Monday morning to take a look and maybe walk it with Trudy to see the layout and to visualize it.
That would be good. Okay. We'll be in
So
contact.
one thing that would be helpful, Brian, is first of all, a lot of people have already voted. So I know that myself and everybody in my family voted back in March, absentee ballot. And I don't know, you might want to check with Trudy because historically, for a town election, when it's when it's a contentious race, you might get 1,800 to people come into a local town election. I mean, the bigger question is going to be what do we do in the fall when we have a presidential election? But a town election, I don't think we're going to have enormous numbers of people showing up. There's a contested school committee and a contested selectman race, and there are probably some other races for the housing and the veterans agent. But I think that the number of people who show up is going to be limited by the number of people who have already voted, who've already done
The absentee
They
ballots.
were, absentee ballots. Now, we're not doing any early voting for the town election because it's not sponsored by the state or the federal government. But I think, a valid estimate for how many voters are expected, and understanding that, that we have a new town clerk who doesn't really have a feel, of Joyce Bradshaw, who had been here for so many years. But she also, it's not like she's not inexperienced. I mean, she's lived in other communities. She's actually served as a town moderator. So I think that, her experience is not completely discountable.
Mhm.
I wouldn't so much think of how many people in the building, but what kind of flow can you generate through there? How many people per hour rather than how many numbers of people in the building?
Mhm.
Because if you think about what does the science tell us? The science tells us that being in an indoor space for, a period of longer than 15 minutes, I think is what gets your exposure up. Now, there's the people who are the poll workers are going to get, that greater than 15-minute exposure. But for the average Joe citizen who walks in there, they're going to walk in there, they're going to grab a ballot, they're going to get checked in, they're going to vote, they're going to deposit the ballot, and they're going to leave. How long are they going to be there? 4 or 5 minutes at the most.
Hopefully, yeah.
Frank, that's a good point. I've voted in, I believe, all town elections since I've lived in North Andover for 40 years or so. And more often than not, I leave and say, wow, there's more people working there than are voting. And plus, right now, with people voting early, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. So that's a real good point, Frank, you made.
So Brian, I think it comes down to, it's like, what kind of protection do we have for the workers? Because I'm not so much concerned about the citizens walking through there because they're not going to have a big exposure. But for the workers themselves, are they going to have a plexiglass shield? Are they going to have face shields? Are they going to have, access to gloves?
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah, they're going to have mask, gloves, and we got plenty of sanitizer. So,
Right.
and then also going to be double tables so that the people aren't coming up close to them. They're going to be 6 feet away.
Right.
I'm going to walk it with Trudy, go over the layout and everything with her on Monday, just to make sure we have everything in line and doing the safest thing possible for the workers. So, yeah, mask, gloves. I have face shields I can have too. So we can look at all that starting the beginning of next week. Get it ready for Tuesday.
So then the next question is that, because it's an election, some of the things that might make sense from a public standpoint might not be acceptable if they are perceived to be impairing somebody's ability to vote. Like how you enforce a queue might be important. But I think that, the queuing should be outside. Maybe we should mark the spaces off and kind of almost have kind of like a long Disney chain. I don't think we're going to have. I don't think that we're going to have an enormous demand for the town election. I think half have voted already. If you say that the race is contentious, maybe you might have 1,000 people, and a lot of them are going to be between 7 and 8, and from 6 to 7 at night.
Right.
So I think that those are the times that you have to plan for, and then just make sure that the queues are outside, and if it's a day of inclement weather, some way to shield them, or to some degree. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it's a work in progress, but I was literally thinking, and just throw out a number, about 150 people. If it keeps moving, fantastic. I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, I'm gonna go take a look and kind of walk it, see how it's going to be set up, and we can go from there. But that's around where I was thinking.
Right, and people who don't have to be in the building probably shouldn't be in the building. I mean, there's usually a half a dozen police officers and the emergency management and things like that. I mean, I don't know what is required to be in the building, but I vote a lot. I know who's there, and it's the same people, and and it's a social occasion, and you say hi to people you haven't seen in a while. But do all of those people really need to be there?
I think it's been pared down. I think it's been looked at, analyzed, and cut down to essential workers only. I think a lot of the poll workers that are typically there are elderly and aren't coming, so it's going to be some town staff filling in. Emergency management will be there. I think going to be helping out with flow and basically giving people directions. And I think we're going to be pared down as much as possible.
Right, and could some of the people that are normally inside, could those be outside, like under some kind of a canopy? Like if you don't know what precinct you belong in, do those people need to be inside the, it really should
Right.
only be the people who give you the ballot and check your name off.
Yep.
And who collect the ballot and check your name off. I mean, those are the people who really, maybe the clerk herself can circulate, but other than that, I don't think that there's a whole lot of need for people to be in that building. So you've got 5 precincts, you've got, 2 people checking people in, 2 people checking people out. That's, I don't know how many precincts we have. It's a
8.
good thing I'm not running for office. So we have 8. So we have 16. So we have 32 people to do that job. Now you've cut the number of people down. You can really space them out if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then,
that's
you have,
yeah.
you have maybe 3 or 4 people at each precinct going in at a time. And you could even queue the precincts outside the building and let them in as they, I think that there's going to be some role for queuing people in different places. So you might even want to queue them outside. Then you don't have to worry about separating them inside.
Okay.
So anyway,
Thank you. I
just some
like
thoughts.
the insight.
Just a thought for moving forward. Is there a way to, more so thinking for the presidential election, to increase voting locations, like potentially divide it into further precincts, maybe open up the elementary schools as precinct voting places to limit the amount of people coming in and out of each building?
You know what? I'm not sure. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know anything about elections and how to set that up.
Yeah, I'm just
Well,
not sure if that's a
That's
state law or...
that's a great point, because they used to always be done in the elementary schools and also in the middle school.
That's what I remember
And,
growing up too. In New York,
Yeah.
that's the way it was.
Okay.
Well, we used the high school field house because we saved money by making it efficient there. And the high school field house is huge, and everybody can vote there because it's a central location. But historically, we've used the elementary schools.
Okay.
What I'm really concerned about is a lot of the people that will be working there are seniors. And as we all know, the seniors are the most vulnerable sector of society when it comes to the COVID-19. As a matter of fact, in Massachusetts, the 6,000+ deaths so far due to this virus, 62% of them live in assisted living homes, that is nursing homes. So they're the ones that we really have to watch out for and protect.
Yeah, a lot of those poll workers
most.
aren't volunteering this time, so we're using town staff.
Oh,
Yes, we didn't
okay.
want to expose them and put them in situations.
I'm glad I brought that up.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better now. That's good. Good.
Okay.
So, Brian, I guess we're delegating it to you to use your best judgment.
I will do that. And Joe, I will talk to you on Monday or this weekend, and we can figure it out for maybe taking a walk through on Monday morning.
Yeah, plus I want to go over a few other things with you, so that'd be fine. Good.
All right. All right, Frank, back to you.
All right, back to me. So, so I think we're finished with elections, and now we have a septic hauler discussion.
Okay.
We also have one other. I don't know if we want to add it at the very end, but on the agenda, after the agenda was written, is talk about the end date of wearing face mask in grocery stores and so forth. We want to bring that up now or at the very end of the meeting?
It's up to you, Frank.
Actually, we kind of started talking about it, and then we kind of left it. We put it on the back burner. Why don't we do the septic handler, and Brian, try not to let us forget to address the expiration date on that order.
All right. So I have a septic installer that's been doing some work in town. He's been here for a few years. He's been in town for as long as I've known him, as long as I've been here. But lately, it's just I'm having problems with his timing. He starts a job and then leaves it and then lets it sit and then comes back, does a little bit more, and he strings the homeowners along for months.
Oof.
And there's nothing that we have that states you have to complete a job within X number of days or X number of weeks, because every site is different. Everything is site specific. Some systems are way more complicated. But I hear what he's doing is he comes in, he low bids them, he gets the job, and he probably gets 10 other jobs all in the area. And then he has to bounce around from each one depending on what stage they're at when he's waiting for materials. And it just takes forever. And he's putting people in a really tough predicament if their house is contingent for sale with the septic system being completed. So people have been having to push back closings. People have been just up in arms. But I don't have anything that has stated anywhere that says you can't take 4 weeks to do one job. But it's a problem. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'd like to maybe have him before the board at our next meeting to talk about a suspension or revocation of his permit. The last job that he did was for a house that was in a trust. The owner had passed away, the trust, the children had the house. They don't live here. So they were trying to do this remotely. And it took him, I think, 3 months to do a job. And then he didn't finish. He hurt his back and went into the hospital. And they had to have somebody else come in to finish the job that he started. So I don't like the way that this is going. I warned him at the start of this job. I said, look, this is the situation. This is what we're looking at. I need this job done as fast as you can. Obviously, meeting all the criteria and doing it correctly, but this is a rush job. This is something that it's in a trust. It's being sold. It's got a closing date. And I think they had to push the closing date back like 3 or 4 times because the system just wasn't getting installed fast enough. And he always had an excuse. So just to give you a forewarning, I think I might send him a letter and have him come in to discuss this with you guys, maybe at the next meeting at the end of June.
Brian, are there any written complaints?
Just via email. I
Yeah.
asked for written complaints that I can give to you guys.
Yeah, that would be good. The emails are enough too.
Yeah, okay.
An email is a written complaint in my book.
Okay.
Brian, what's a reasonable period of time that the ground should be opened for a septic install?
2 weeks.
Well, should we have a local regulation that says that jobs that aren't completed within 4 weeks need to come before the board, or should we make the permit expire from a certain number of days after the ground is broken?
I think that's a good idea. I like the expiration. 4 weeks from the day the ground is broken, and they start the excavation for the bottom of the bed inspection.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should have, they can come before us and appeal to have the permit extended, but it should be our decision, not the family fighting with them. Especially, I mean, the thing is, a septic tank is it's a health hazard to not have these things up and running.
Yes, I mean this house was empty. There was nobody there, but it was just it was painful.
Property uninhabitable, and I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, they couldn't close on it because the system wasn't done. The bank wouldn't give the buyer the money until they got the certificate of compliance, which we can't give until the system is complete and inspected and done.
I think the quickest way is to have our permits time limited.
Okay.
And we can have him there for that discussion and tell him that because of his injudiciousness that we have to have this discussion. We can have it right in front of him.
Okay. I like that idea.
Do we need a motion on that? I too think that's a good idea.
No, just discussion, I think. I can send him a letter and invite him to our next meeting.
But as far as the time limit.
Oh yeah, I'd have to draft
we'd
something.
We'd have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to do anything with septic regs, We have to do 14-day notice in the paper. We've got to do a public hearing notice, legal notice, and do it through the proper channels. Any other regulation you don't have to do all that for. Only Title V and local septic regulations, you have to do a 2-week legal notice.
Brian, that shouldn't keep you from bringing them before us, though.
No. But to revise your regulations, that would be the 2-week publication. All right.
All right, so we'll just take that as information recorded in the minutes, and we will cordially invite the installer to come and meet with us and explain the reason for the complaints.
Okay. Will do. All right, and the last thing is the emergency order.
Yeah, I'd like to start on the emergency order. It was on May the 6th, the face masks were required in Massachusetts for employees, grocery stores, and so forth. Our order, not the end of a town order, for employees in grocery stores to wear face masks has been in place since April the 24th. So several weeks before, and we're usually ahead of the state when it comes to doing things, like in tobacco regs and so forth. The governor's policies to address this virus arguably are conservative. So perhaps our town's end date should be the same as the state's end date. Because there's so much that's unknown right now. And the state is in a position to act immediately, whereas we don't have immediate town meetings. So I think there should be a greater measure of consistency going forward with the state, considering that an argument can be made that the state is conservative with its regulations and policies concerning COVID-19.
Joe, I think that's an excellent point. I think that our regulations should harmonize with the state when possible. If we need to take extra action, that's allowed. But I don't think that we should extend our mask mandate beyond the state's expiration of its mask mandate. And so we could simply just move to have the mask mandate expire with the state lifting its order.
Yeah, and I can give you some verbiage on that. This winging it, the North Andover emergency order for employees of grocery stores and other food retailers will expire on the 8th as the specific state order expires, or same date that the specific state order expires.
Do we have to extend it, or ultimately, if we're going with the state and the state has higher level than us and we are only really would need to do something if we wanted to be at a higher level than the state? So ultimately, are we just repeating what already exists?
Well, we
So
don't have
Michelle,
we don't have an end date on this. Again, what we put in our order precedes the state's order by several weeks, and there was not an end date. So if we're looking at an end date, let's just be consistent with the end date that the state will have, which should be and probably will be conservative.
Well, do we even need to, why can't we just end ours as of right now, because the state supersedes it anyway?
Yeah, same
Good
thing.
point.
Different verbiage, but same thing.
So I think we should just have a justification if that's the case in our motion, given that the state regulation supersedes the North Andover regulation, that the Board of Health feels that the local regulation is no longer necessary and rescinds its emergency order, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So as a chairman, I can't technically make that, but somebody else could just quote
Well, you're
me
the quasi-chairman right now, and I support that verbatim.
Okay, so a motion by Joe to immediately rescind the order since it's already superseded by the state. Further discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Looks like we're ready for a vote. All in favor of rescinding the emergency order, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous, and the emergency order is rescinded, understanding that the state regulation is already inclusive. Very good. Any other items for discussion tonight, Brian? Communication announcements.
I think, Steven, did you have one more thing to maybe talk about?
Yeah, so I had just one quick thing for you guys. I know we had brought it up. I don't remember if it was last meeting or the meeting before, but I had gotten a couple calls about like ice cream trucks, and I know we were kind of holding off on issuing any permits just because we were kind of in the heart of the pandemic. But I just wanted to bring that up quick and see what you guys thought about it as far as possibly being able to start either putting out or accepting permit applications or things of that nature.
Well, I know that in North Andover, for example, ice creams are sold in smaller farms. Matter of fact, I bought one yesterday. They're also sold at Benson's, although I don't think that's in North Andover. And I can't comment on the other ice cream parlors, but ice cream is sold right now in North Andover, and there's no reason that it should not be sold by truck that I see.
And I think the movement across the state has been ice cream trucks are being permitted slowly. They do have to abide by social distancing guidelines and rules. So when they pull up somewhere, they can't have the big crowd of kids run up all the window. They have to announce, they have to have signage to form a single file line if possible, or instruct that they have to do that or they will be leaving. So I think we only have a few ice cream trucks that come to town every year. We can have some conversations with them and let them know what the requirements will be. And if they are not abiding by those, we will revoke their permit.
So I think as long as there's an education component, as you suggested, Brian,
Yep.
and that they are made aware that their permit will be removed immediately for violations, and that the appeal process will take a month for them to come before the board. So I think it behooves them to maintain good behavior.
Exactly. Okay. So I know you guys talked about holding off and not issuing any permits for ice cream trucks. This is probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when everything was kind of peaking. So I think I think we're at a good time where we can let this go with education and even probably some spot checks.
Right, and since we never banned it, we don't need to take a vote to unban it. So
right.
I think there's enough best practices at this point too.
Mm-hmm.
That they can see.
I was just wondering if there's a rule if the new chairman's got to buy everybody ice cream then.
You can be the designated ice cream inspector for the group.
Consider we can't go to the loft 99 and celebrate anymore as a board.
All right. Sounds good, Joe. You're on the hook for ice cream.
All right.
Be a lot less expensive than we used to go to.
Well, the outgoing chairman has to buy dinner for everybody, right? When restaurants open up.
Yeah, I might be out in the hills by then.
I have a comment to make, and I'll do something different this time. I'll make it brief. Yesterday, I had to return something to Home Depot in Bruin, and the return line was huge. And I waited outside for about a half hour, and the temperature was in the mid-90s, or low 90s at that time. And as a senior citizen, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And then you go in, and there weren't that many people inside. So I think that some establishments being overzealous, that they may even be hurting their business. With so few people inside, and you see that at Ace Hardware here in North Andover, you see it at Lowe's, different Lowe's in like Salem, New Hampshire, and so forth. And I don't know. It's to me, it's worse to wait outside. They should get the people in and out, not hovering around for a half hour longer, in line outside when the temperature's in the mid-90s. Makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. And that's my gripe of the day.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, they say, Joe, sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah, dying of dehydration isn't too good for you, though, Frank.
All right. All right. If there's no other business, I think we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, and this will be the last such motion I can make in quite some time.
Oh, boy.
And it only lacks for a second.
I second that motion.
All right. Seconded by Daphne. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? No. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned.